In the Shade of the Quran by Sayyid Qutb, translated by M.A. Salahi and A.A. Shamis for World Assembly of Muslim Youth 1979. Surah 81, The Darkening, at-Takwir.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت وإذا الوحوش حشرت وإذا البحار سجرت وإذا النفوس زوجت وإذا الموءودة سئلت بأي ذنب قتلت وإذا الصحف نشرت وإذا السماء كشطت وإذا الجحيم سعرت وإذا الجنة أزلفت علمت نفس ما أحضرت فلا أقسم بالخنس الجوار الكنس والليل إذا عسعس والصبح إذا تنفس إنه لقول رسول كريم ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين وما صاحبكم بمجنون ولقد رآه بالأفق المبين وما هو على الغيب بضنين وما هو بقول شيطان رجيم فأين تذهبون إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين لمن شاء منكم أن يستقيم وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله رب العالمين.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. When the sun is darkened, when the stars fall and disperse, when the mountains are made to move away, when the camels, 10 months pregnant, are left untended, when the wild bees are brought together, when the seas are set alight, when men's souls are paired, when the infant girls buried alive is asked for what crime she was slain, when the records are laid open, when the sky is stripped bare, when hell is made to burn fiercely, when paradise is brought near. Every soul shall know what it has put forward. I swear by the turning stars, which move swiftly and hide themselves away, and by the night as it comes darkening on, and by the dawn as it starts to breathe. This is truly the word of a noble and mighty messenger, who enjoys a secure position with the Lord of the throne. He is albeit in heaven, faithful to his trust. Your old friend is not mad. You saw him on the clear horizon. He does not grasp the secrets of the unseen. It is not the word of an accursed devil. Whither then are you going? This is only a reminder to all men, to those of you whose will is to be upright, Yet you, you cannot well accept by the wills of Allah, Lord of all the worlds. The surah may be divided into two parts, each of them treating one major principle of faith. The first is the principle of resurrection, accompanied by a great upheaval in the universe, which affects the sun and the stars, the mountains and the seas, heaven and earth, wild and domestic animals, as well as men. The second principle, discussed in the second half of the surah, is the principle of revelation. The surah has something to say about the angel carrying the divine revelation, the prophet receiving it, the people addressed by it, and the supreme will which has shaped their nature and sent down to them this revelation. The rhythm of the surah is one of violent movement which leaves nothing in its place. Everything is thrown, smashed, or scattered away. The movement is so violent that it sacks and frightens, it alters every familiar situation and shakes men's heart violently for a long period so that they feel deprived of both shelter and reassurance. In such a violent, destructive storm, the human heart is no more than a little feather blown in every direction. No protection, and indeed no safety can then be found except what is granted by Allah, the Eternal Being. Thus, the rhythm of the surah has on its own the effect of pulling man's heart and soul away from everything associated with safety and security in order to seek peace, safety and protection in Allah. The surah is also a gem of striking images drawn from the universe in both its present beautiful condition, which is familiar to us, and its condition on the day of resurrection, when every familiar thing is changed beyond recognition. The surah is moreover rich in fine expression, which add color to the images portrayed. As the surah is so short, the rhythm, images, and fine expression combine together to produce a very strong and lasting effect. Had it not been for the fact that the surah contains some words which are no longer familiar to us today, I would have preferred not to comment on it. Its rhythm and images leave a far stronger effect than any human interpretation can aspire to achieve. When the sun is darkened, when the stars fall and disperse, when the mountains are made to move away, when camels 10 months pregnant are left untended, when the wild beasts are brought together, when the seas are set alight, when men's souls are paired, when the infant girl buried alive is asked for what crime she was slain, when records are laid down, when the skies is stripped bare, when hell is made to burn fiercely, when paradise is brought near, every soul shall know what he has put forward. These verses sketch a scene of a great upheaval which envelops the whole universe. It is an event which reveals every guarded secret and leaves nothing hidden away. Every human being faces what he has put forward for the day of reckoning and judgment. The great events mentioned indicate that the present familiar state of the universe, with its perfect harmony, measured movement, controlled relations, perfected by a meticulous and able maker, will suffer a breakdown of its system. It will have completed its role. Along with all creation, it will move into a new predetermined phase of life, unlike anything known to us in this world. The surah aims to get this idea of the inevitable upheaval well established in men's heart and mind, so that they may attach little or no importance to the values and riches of this world. though this may seem to be of lasting consequence. The hearts and minds of peoples establish a firm bond with the everlasting truth, i.e., the truth of Allah, the Eternal. It never change when everything else changes and disappears. They should break the chains of what is familiar in this life in order to recognize the absolute truth, which admits no restriction of time, place, finite faculties, or temporal standards. As one goes through the events of this universal upheaval, one cannot fail to observe an inner feeling for this affirmation. As to what exactly happens to all these types of creation during the resurrection, we can only say that it is known to Allah alone. We can only comprehend what we have experienced. When we think of a great upheaval in the world, our imagination cannot stretch beyond a violent earthquake or volcano, or perhaps the fall of a bomb. Floods are perhaps the most destructive manifestation of the power of water known to us. The most powerful events in the universe we have monitored were some limited explosion in the sun, which is millions of miles away from us. All these events, great as they may be, seem so small when they are compared to that universal upheaval which may take place on the day of resurrection. That they may be considered akin to children's play. If we really want to know what will happen then, we can do no more than attempt to draw some sort of comparison with what we have experienced in this life. The darkening of the sun probably means that it will cool down, and its flame, which stretched out for thousands of miles in space, will dwindle and die down. As the sun is now in gas form because of its intense heat, which reaches a maximum of 12,000 degrees, its darkening probably means its transformation by freezing to a form similar to those of the surface of the earth. It may adopt a circular shape without becoming stretched out. This is probably the meaning of the opening verse, but it could also mean something different. As to how it will happen or what will cause it to happen, we can only say that this is known only to Allah. The falling of the stars probably means that they will break away from the system which holds them together and lose their light and brightness. Only Allah knows which stars will be affected by this event. Will it affect only a small group of stars, say our own solar system or our galaxy, which comprises hundreds of millions of stars, or will it affect all the stars in their millions of millions? It is a well-known fact that the universe comprises an almost infinite number of galaxies, each with its own space. The forcing away of the mountains probably means that they will be crushed and blown away, as indicated in other surah. They ask you about mountains. Say, my Lord will crush them to fine dust and leave them a desolate waste. When the mountains crumble away and scatter into fine dust, and the mountains shall pass away as if they were mirage. All these verses refer to a certain event which will affect the mountains and do away with their firm foundation and stability. These may be the beginning of the quake which will shake the earth violently and which is mentioned in Surah 99, the earthquake. When the earth is rocked in her last convulsion, when the earth shakes off her burdens, all these events will take place on that very long day. When the camels, 10 months pregnant, are left untended. The Arabic description of the camel here specifies that she is in her 10th month of pregnancy. When in this state, she is to the Arab his most valuable possession, because she is about to add to his wealth by a highly valued young camel, and to give him a lot of milk, which he and his family will share with the newborn animal. However, on that day, which will witness such overwhelming events such priceless camels will be left without care, completely unattended. The Arabs, who were the first to be addressed by these words, never left such camels untended, except for the gravest of dangers. When the wild beasts are brought together, the great terror which overwhelms the wild beasts in the jungle is the cause of their coming together. They forget their mutual enmities and move together unaware of their direction. They neither seek their homes nor chase their prey as they usually do. The overwhelming terror changes the character of even the wildest of beasts. What will it do to men? When the seas are set alight, the Arabic term here may mean that the seas will be overfilled with water from floods similar to those which characterize the early stages of life on Earth. On the other hand, earthquakes and volcanoes may remove the barriers now separating the sea so that the water of one will flow into the other. The Arabic expression may also mean that the seas will experience explosions which set them ablaze, as mentioned elsewhere in the Quran, when the oceans are made to explode. The explosion may result from separating the oxygen and the hydrogen which make the sea water. There could also be atomic explosion of some sort. If the explosion of a limited number of atoms in a hydrogen or atom bomb produces such dreadful consequence as we have seen, then the atomic explosion of the waters of the ocean, in whatever manner it may occur, will produce something much too fearful for our minds to visualize. Similarly, we cannot conceive the reality of hell, which stands beyond these vast oceans. When men's souls are paired, the pairing of souls may mean the reunion of the body and soul at the time of resurrection. It may also mean their grouping, like with like, as mentioned elsewhere in the Quran. You will be divided to three groups: the chosen, the elite, the people of the right, and the people of the left. It may also mean some other ways of grouping. When the infant girl buried alive is asked for what crime she was slain, the value of human life must have sunk very low in pre-Islamic Arabian society. There existed a convention of burying young girls alive for fear of shame or poverty. The Quran describes this practice in order to portray its horror and record its ignorance, i.e. Jahiliyah. This condemnation fits in perfectly with the declared aims of Islam: to destroy ignorance and save mankind from sinking to its depth. In Surah 16, the B, we read in translation, when the birth of a girl is announced to one of them, his face grows dark and is filled with rage and inward gloom. Because of the bad news, he hides himself from everybody. Should he keep her with disgrace or bury her under the dust? How will they judge? And in Surah 17, the night's journey, we read, you shall not kill the children for fear of want. We will provide for them and for you. Girls were killed in an extremely cruel way. They were buried alive. Those Arabs who did not kill their young daughters or send them to mine cattle as different methods of ill-treating women. If a man died, the head of the clan would throw his gowns over the widow. This was a gesture of acquisition, which means that the widow could not remarry anyone except the owner of the gown. If he fancied her, he would marry her, paying no regard whatsoever to her feeling in the matter. If he did not marry her, he would keep her until she died, so as to inherit her wealth. Such was the attitude of the ignorant society in Arabia to women. Islam condemns this attitude and spurns all these practices. It forbids the murder of young girls and expresses its horrifying nature. It makes it one of the subjects of reckoning on the Day of Judgment. Here, the Surah mentions it as one of the great events which overwhelms the universe in a total upheaval. We were told that the murdered girls will be questioned about her murder. The Surah leaves us to imagine how the murderer will be brought to account. The ignorant social order of the pre-Islamic period would never have helped women to gain a respectable, dignified position. That had to be decreed by Allah. The way of life Allah has chosen for mankind secures a dignified position for both men and women who share the honor of having a measure of the divine spirit breathed into them. Women owe their respectable position to Islam, not to any factor of environment or social setup. When the new man with heavenly values come into being, women become respected and honored. The woman's weakness of being a financial burden to a family was no longer of any consequence in determining her position and the respect she enjoyed. These considerations have no weight in the scales of heaven. Real weight belongs to the noble human soul when it maintains a relationship with Allah. In this, men and women are equal. When one puts forward the argument in support for the fact that Islam is a divine religion and that it has been conveyed to us by Allah's messenger who has received his revelation, one should state the change made by Islam in the social status of women as one of the irrefutable arguments. Nothing in the social setup of Arabia at the time pointed to such an elevation of the woman's position. No social or economic consideration made it necessary or desirable. It was a deliberate move made by Islam for reasons which are totally different from those of this world and from those of the ignorant society in particular. When the records are laid open, this is a reference to the record of people's deeds. They are laid open in order that they may be known to everybody. This in itself is hard to bear. Many a breast has closely hidden a secret, the remembrance of which brings a feeling of shame and a shudder to its owner. Yet all secrets are made public on that eventful day. This publicity, representative of the great upheaval which envelopes the whole universe, is part of the fearful events which fill men's hearts with horror on that day. When the sky is stripped bare, this image corresponds closely to throwing open people's secret. When the word sky is used, our first thought reaches to the blue cover hosted over our heads. Its stripping means the removal of that cover. How this would happen remains to us a matter of conjecture. It is enough to say that when we look up, we will no longer see our familiar blue dome. These may be brought about by any change affecting the status quo in the universe which causes this phenomenon to exist. The last scene of that fearful day is portrayed by the next two verses. When hell is made to burn fiercely, when paradise is brought near. Where is hell? How does it burn? What fuel is used in lighting and feeding its fire? Its fire. The only thing we know of that is that it has fuel of man and stones. This is, of course, after they have been thrown in it. Its true nature and its fuel prior to that is part of Allah's knowledge. Every soul shall know what he has put forward. In the midst of all these overwhelming events, every soul shall know for certain what sort of deed it has brought with itself. Every soul shall all know that it cannot change, omit from or add to it what it has done. People will find themselves completely separated from all that has been familiar to them and from their world as a whole. Everything will have undergone a total change except Allah. If man turns to Allah, he will find that his support is forthcoming when the whole universe is overwhelmed by change. Thus ends the first part of the surah, which fills both mind and heart with a vivid impression of the universal upheaval on the day of resurrection. The second part of the surah opens with a certain forms of oath by some very beautiful scenes in the universe. The oath, in fine expression, is made to assert the nature of the revelation, the angel carrying it and the messenger receiving and conveying it, as well as people's attitude to it, all in accordance with Allah's will. I swear by the turning stars, which move swiftly and hide themselves away, and by the night as it comes darkening on, and by dawn as it starts to breathe. This is truly the words of a noble and mighty messenger who enjoys the secure position with the Lord of the throne. He is obeyed in heaven, faithful to his trust. Your old friend is not mad. You saw him on the clear horizon. He does not grudge the secrets of the unseen. It is not the word of an accursed devil. Whither then are you going? This is only a reminder to all men, to those of you whose will is to be upright. Yet you cannot well except by the will of Allah, Lord of all the worlds. The stars referred to here are those which turn in their orbits and are characterized by their swift movement and temporary disappearance. In translating the text, we have to forego the sustained metaphor used in Arabic, which draws an analogy between these stars and the deer as they run at great speed towards their home, disappear for a while and then reappear at a different point. The Arabic metaphor adds considerable liveliness and beauty to the description of the movement of the stars, which corresponds to the rhythmic beauty of the expression. Again, the rhythm of the Arabic transverse, translated as, and by the night as it comes darkening on, give a feeling of life, depicting the night as a living being. The beauty of the Arabic expression is of surpassing excellence. The same applies to the next verse, and by the dawn as it turns to breathe. This verse is indeed more effective in portraying dawn as alive, breathing. His breath is a spreading light and a life that begins to stir in everything. I doubt whether the Arabic language, with its inexhaustible wealth of fine imagery and vivid expression, can produce an image portraying dawns which can be considered equal to this Quranic image in aesthetic effect. After a fine night, one can almost feel that dawn is breathing. Any aesthete will readily perceive that the divine words of the first 4 verses of this second part of the surah constitute a gem of fine expression and vivid description. I swear by the turning stars, which move swiftly and hid themselves away, and by the nights as it comes darkening on, and by the dawn as it starts to breathe. This descriptive wealth adds power to man's feeling as he responds to the natural phenomena to which the verses refer. As the Quran makes this brief, full of life description of this phenomena, it establishes a spiritual link between them and man, with the result that as we read, we feel the power which created this phenomena and the truth we are called upon to believe. This truth is then stated in a manner which fits in superbly with the general theme of the surah. This is truly the word of a noble and mighty messenger who enjoys a secure position with the Lord of the throne. He is obeyed in heaven, faithful to his trust. This Quran, with its description of the Day of Judgment, is the word of a noble messenger, that is, Jibril, the angel who carried and conveyed it to Muhammad, peace be on him. The surah then gives a description of this chosen messenger. He is noble, honored by Allah, who says that he is mighty, which suggests that considerable strength is required to carry and convey the Quran, who enjoys a secure position with the Lord of the throne. What a great honor for Jibril to enjoy such a position with the Lord of the universe. He is orbit in heaven, i.e. by the other angels. He is also faithful to his trust, carrying and discharging his message. These qualities add up to a definite conclusion that the Quran is a noble, mighty and exalted message, and that Allah takes special care of man. It is a manifestation of this care that he had chosen an angel of the caliber of Jibril to convey his revelation to the men he has chosen as his messenger. As man reflects on this divine care, he should feel humble, for he himself is worth very little in the kingdom of Allah, were it not for the care Allah takes of him and the honor he bestows on him. There follows a description of the Prophet who conveys this revelation to the people. The surah seems to say to them, "You have known Muhammad very well over a considerable length of time. He is your old, honest, trusted friend. Why then are you fabricating tales about him when he has been telling you the simple truth which has been entrusted to convey to you? Your old friend is not mad. You saw him on the clear horizon. He does not grasp the secrets of the unseen. It is not the word of an accursed devil. Whither then are you going?" This is only a reminder to all men. They knew the Prophet perfectly well. They knew that he was a man of steady character, great sagacity and complete honesty. But in spite of all this, they claimed that he was mad and that he conceived his revelation from the devil. Some of them adopted this attitude as a basis for the sustained attacks on the Prophet and his Islamic messages. Others did so out of amazement and wonder at his revelation, which is unlike anything said or written by men. Their claim confirmed the traditional belief that such poet had a devil who wrote his poem, and each monk had a devil who uncovered for him the secret of the unknown world. They also believed that the devil may come in contact with some people, causing them to say some very strange thing. They ignored the only valid explanation, that the Quran is revealed by Allah, the Lord of all the world. The surah counters this attitude by a reference to the surpassing beauty of Allah's creation, noticeably everywhere in the universe, and by portraying some universal scenes as they appear, full of life. This method of reply suggests that the Quran comes from the same creative power which endowed the universe with matchless beauty. It also tells them that about the two messengers entrusted with the Quran, the one who brought it down and the one who conveyed it to them, i.e. their own friend whom they know to be sane and not mad. The surah tells them that he has indeed seen the other noble messenger, Jibril, with his own eyes on the clear horizon where no confusion is possible. He is faithful to his trust and cannot be suspected of telling anything but the truth. After all, they have never associated him with anything dishonest. It is not the word of an accursed devil. Devil by nature cannot provide such a straightforward and consistent code of conduct. Here the surah asks disapprovingly, "Whither then are you going? How far can you err? How far can you err in your judgment? And where can you go away from the truth which stares you in the face wherever you go?" This is only a reminder to all men. It reminds them of the nature of their existence, their origins, and the nature of the universe around them. The reminder is to all men. Islam here declares the universal nature of its call right from the start in Mecca, where it was subjected to an unabating campaign of persecution. The surah then reminds us that it is up to every individual to choose whether to follow the right path or not. Since Allah has granted everyone his or her free will, then every human being is responsible for himself. To those of you whose will is to be upright, that is to say, to follow Allah's guidance, all doubts have been dispelled, all excuses answered by this clear statement of all the relevant facts. The right path has been indicated for everyone who wishes to be upright. Anyone who follows a different path shall therefore bear the responsibility for his action. There are in the human soul and in the universe at large numerous signs which beckons every man and woman to follow the path of faith. These are so clearly visible and so powerful in their effect that one needs to make a determined effort to turn one's back on them, especially when one's attention is drawn to them in the stirring, persuasive manner of the Qur'an. It is therefore man's own will which leads him away from Allah's guidance. He has no other excuse or justification. The surah concludes by stating that the operative will behind everything is the will of Allah. You cannot will except by the will of Allah, Lord of all the world. We notice that the Quran makes a statement of this type whenever the will of human beings or creatures generally is mentioned. The reason for this is that the Quran wants it to keep the fundamental concepts of faith absolutely clear. These include the fact that everything in the universe is subject to the will of Allah. No one has a will which is independent from which of Allah. That He grants man a free will is part of His own divine will, like everything else. The same applies to His granting on the angel the ability to show complete and absolute obedience to Him and to carry out all His commandments. These fundamental facts must be clearly understood by the believers so that they may have a clear concept of the absolute truth. When they acquire such a concept, they will turn to the divine will for guidance and support and regulate their affairs according to this will. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Ya Fattah, Ya Razzaq, Ya Wahhab, Ya Ghani, Ya Mughni, Ya Khadim, Ya Daim, Ya Ahad, Ya Wahid, Ya Samad, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram, Ya Rabb, Ya Zal Jalali wal Ikram.